Welcome, everyone. Welcome, 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 welcome. Just joined us. Welcome to the session. As we have people walking through the door, do us a favor and tell us where you're joining from. So just put it in the Zoom chat. And if you can't hear me over the engagement, I'm just going to dial sometime a little bit. And all right, we got people from the East Coast here in the US. We got folks from New York, fantastic. And while we're stateside, come on, I'm just going to fly around and look where people are joining.
The music's too loud.
You know, Peter, if you could just except Jessie, of course. Awesome. Welcome from Jaipur. In Bangalore. And for those of you who are not too familiar with that tune, that is the spirit of Rangila. Rangila is a movie that was, as we call in India, a super duper hit in the 90s, around the time our guest for today and the co-founders at Stream Alive were graduating from B School. So it holds meaning for us in multiple ways. Plus, it's just a very, very peppy song. Those of you who joined us, just type in the chat as to where you're joining us from. We are eating our own dog food, very, very obviously, using Stream Alive. Thank you, Theo, for joining us from Cape Town, from South Africa. We got a couple of people in Europe. Peter here. We got Peter in Reading. We got Peter there as well. Fantastic. So those of you who just joined us, type in the chat as to where you're joining us. It would be great to have this map fill out. That's beautiful. Thank you. And one other quick question before I introduce our guest. If you've been for one of these sessions that we host almost every second week, just type the number 1 in the chat. And if this is your first Stream Alive session, first of all, welcome. And second, just type the number 2 in the chat, please. Right. So I'd love to know how many of you have experienced one of these, know how these things work. So it kind of tells me how deep I need to get into with the house rules. Okay, it's almost split in the middle. Fantastic. You're going to wait a little bit more. Again, if this is your first live with Stream Alive session, type the number 2 because you haven't been for one before. And if you've been for one before, this is doctor. This is rigged. It's 50-50. Okay. Fantastic. Hey, so thank you for joining us. Those of you who've been for other sessions before, thank you for coming back again. Those of you who are here for the first time, welcome to what hopefully will be a new way of conversation, of presentation, of engagement. I'm Lux Narayan. I am a co-founder and the CEO at Stream Alive, and we're going to be using Stream Alive to keep today's conversation engaging. Not that today's guest needs it, and I'm very, very thrilled to have her here today. She's a dear friend. We went to college together. I will not tell you when because that would betray a lot of things. But we went to college together along with the other co-founders at Stream Alive. So we have a lot of shared stories. She's done amazing things since then. The running joke in our batch is if you need anything from insurance to consumer packaged goods to an excellent hotel room, ask Jessie because she's probably on the board of a company around all of these. She's also on the board of some nonprofits and some amazing companies, and she'll give more color to that as she speaks. She's also been at very, very senior roles at amazing companies. She started in advertising and then moved on to, be a CMO at Wipro. She had senior roles at Infosys. She's been at iGate. She has seen the Indian IT services industry literally from its growth phase and has a lot of stories from that as well. And she has written 2 amazing books, both on frugal marketing. One, can't remember, was it 10 years ago or something? She's been a prolific writer. She just wrote issue number, I think, 569 of her newsletter this morning, and I read it before this call, as I often do for the last 569 weeks. And she's written a second updated new version of her book as well. And heads up, stick with us till the end, because if you participate in the chat like you've already done, you have a hat in the ring for winning 1 of 2 copies of her book that we're going to be giving away. So without further ado, my pleasure to introduce the amazing dear friend, Jessie Paul. Over to you, Jessie.
Thank you so much, Lux. That was an amazing introduction. I was kind of hoping that you weren't going to laugh at me. That's great. As a stand-up comedian, I'm always afraid to be in the front row with you. So thanks so much, and thanks to everybody for joining. And these are the two books that I wrote, and they will be largely a part of what we're going to talk about today, which is how are we building a brand when you don't have a lot of money. I do also want to say that a lot of money is very relative. And what I mean by that is that, look, if your competitor has 500 million and you have 5 million, you would say, I don't have a lot of money. And if you just, have 500,000, you might say, I have a lot of money if all my competitors, have much less. So it's a relative word, but by and large, I've yet to meet a marketer who says, gee whiz, I've got tons of money. All right. Lux, if you could move to the next slide, please. So as Lux mentioned, I am on the board of a number of organizations, apart from my own, which is Paul Reiter. So, and none of these organizations, and they vary in size quite a bit. They're microfinance, they're consumer care, insurance aggregator, IT, HR firm that's going for an IPO. None of them actually, the marketing guy will ever say I have enough money. So I think it's a fundamental truth of marketing that you never have as much as you would like. And that's really what we're going to talk about today, which is, given that we don't have a lot of money, how can we use what we have the best way that we can? And how can we make it go far? Now, we've talked, like in the past, people who talk about guerrilla marketing, which works, but that's still very tactical. So what I want to talk about today is something a little bit different. So Lux, if you could move to the next slide, please. Before we start, what best describes your job role?
Yeah, I just thought we'd get a sense of who's in the room, Jess, because just eyeballing the emails and the signups, we've got a whole bunch of folks with different backgrounds, different intents. So folks, in 1 or 2 words, maximum 2 words, if you can just type how you would describe your job role. But founders.
So I do also want to call out the fact that this is not a typical one-way webinar. I do want you to keep asking me questions, post it in there, talk to me. No, because of Stream Live, we can be way more interactive than the typical one-way conversation that you get in a webinar.
Thanks for mentioning that, because I forgot to mention, folks, if you have questions, just type them in the chat down the line after this interaction. We will be, keeping some time aside for Q&A, and we'll be using Streamer Live to pull out questions from the chat. I'm just going to stop this interaction now, if that's okay, Jess. I think we got a sense of it.
Sure.
Any comments on that before I go to the next slide?
No, a lot of founders, a lot of marketing people, and operations, analytics. So great. We've got a good base of people. And I think most of you will have direct influence over a brand. So that's fantastic. So what I want to talk about today, and that's like the key principle, is how can we move our marketing to pulling people versus pushing, right? A dream world for every marketer is where customers come to you. You just open your shop and in they come. That's the marketing dream. And it has happened for a number of companies that they don't actually go out and pursue people. People come to them. So what do they do? What can you do that would make people come to you, as opposed to you always chasing? And in this chasing, I would count sales, I would count performance marketing, I would call cold calling, demand generation, whatever you want to do, call it. It is still push, but we want to do more of pull, because that, in my view, is the most efficient, most low-cost way in which you could use whatever funds that you have. Next slide, please. So where's the cheese? Typically, when I talk to founders, the conversation is about how awesome their product is. No founder obviously creates a product that they think is bad. So if you're a founder, you're a CEO, you're the sales head, you tend to say my product is awesome, product, service, whatever. And we are all really in the game of building a better mousetrap, which is great. But then I find that a lot of organizations put so much into building this better mousetrap that they forget to buy the cheese. And in effect, what that means is that you've got mousetrap and then you're literally like running around trying to catch the cheese, catch the mouse. There is no money left for cheese, or there's no bandwidth left for cheese. So all we do is run around crazily with a net trying to catch butterflies or mice or whatever you want to say. What we're going to talk about today is what's the most efficient cheese that you could put to attract customers towards your product instead of you chasing them all the time. So, and also it's got to be relevant, because we have to keep in mind that, you know, you don't want any old person. It's got to be relevant for the right audience. And I do want to share a little bit of story with you. I'm sure all of you have heard of the email scams. And it always surprised me. And I almost got scammed just like 2 days ago on a reseller site in Singapore called Carousel. So I had listed something for $40, and this person says, hey, I will buy it from you right now for $60 if only you could share your email address. Now I'm like, nah, sounds fishy. Why would you offer me more than what I asked for? And I managed to report him, get him suspended. But I did wonder, why would he say 60 when if he had told me 39, I would have believed him. And then you realize that that's a classic one of trying to weed out the people who will spot a scam. So similarly, as marketers, and we have to be efficient in finding only the right customers. So not only do you need to invest in your cheese, but your cheese has to make sure that it's only relevant to what would be your ideal customer base, right? You know, like, for example, Coke has 100% awareness, but it's not relevant to me. So I don't want to buy Coke because I don't think it's good for me. I don't have any need for Coke. So 100% awareness is not what we're really working towards. We just need awareness amongst our potential target mice, right? Lux, next slide, please.
I think we've got a poll coming up next, just to understand what people's challenges are.
Absolutely.
Again, folks, you know the drill. If you don't mind typing 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, and I think the way we configure this one is you can type multiple if they are, in which case type 1 once and then type 2 if that's also important. Just want to understand what are people's biggest challenges. It also gives Jessie a little more color on what you're struggling with the most. Any surprises here, Jessie?
Oh, yeah, actually, lead generation is overtaking all the other stuff. So at the end of the session, I really want you guys to realize that lead generation is a challenge because 1 and 3 aren't happening. If everybody who could potentially buy from you knew about the brand, and if you had this great defining thing, you wouldn't have a problem with lead generation. So I know all of you do not read my newsletter, but last week I wrote about how piano playing got me my first marriage proposal. So every month, every school holiday, I would go out and learn something. I lived in this really tiny town, nothing else to do. So I would sign up for things ranging from typewriting to Hindi to piano. And one summer it was piano, and someone took a picture of me playing a piano, and this circulated in family groups. And somebody from Bangalore in the arranged marriage game wanted a classy person from a village, and hey, what connotes classiness more than a piano? So they showed up on my doorstep. So that's a lead generation piece done. That is really what we need, that they've heard you and it's differentiated in aligned with what they're looking for. And then people will come to you. You won't be chasing people saying, buy me, buy me, buy me. So that's really what I want to leave you with out of this slide. Content creation, a challenge. My only advice to anyone with that particular problem is AI is your friend. It does fabulous content creation. You have to give it the idea. So, but let's focus on the awareness and the differentiating ourselves. And hopefully with that, the leads will just follow. Next slide.
Before I hit the next slide, Jesse, just wanted to comment on something you said, which is what can be more classy than playing the piano? I know that was a rhetorical question, but I would say baking a cake and having strawberries on the side, which I thought was a hilarious story from today's newsletter. And we shall not say anymore and tell people that if they want to find it, they've got to subscribe to your newsletter, and the link is in the last slide of today's presentation. But that was a story.
Yeah. They should read the newsletter, but as an aside, by the time we reached the bank's office, that kid was my best friend, and the bank manager thought we were related because he loved me so much. And I had chocolates for the occasion, so I remained that child's friend till the transaction was done. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk primarily about the 6 pillars of persuasion. There is a lot of marketing that goes into being a pull brand. But I wanted to focus on these 6 because these will give you something to work with. I can't do much more in the time that we have available. So I'm going to go through all 6 of these briefly and then move to some highlights. So these 6 were created based on research that Google did on online buying, like how do people actually look at online buying. So superlative heuristic is something that leaps out at you and says, oh, this would, this one is going to make you a millionaire, or I'm sure all of us have signed up for a tool because it convinced you that it would solve your lead generation problem. Social media is full of these people who will be like, sign up for my program and you will, get leads pouring through, just pay out $50 and I will show you how it's done. And I'm the only person who has learned how to make cats sing, and therefore please sign up for me, right? So that's superlative heuristic. Trusted authority is someone has to, give you some endorsement for it. Social proof typically means, in my ecosystem is somebody agreeing with whatever I'm saying. And then we come to the power of now, which is you have to make me buy today, because otherwise, those of you familiar with the old band cycle know that this will just go on and on and on, and they don't actually buy because we could always do it tomorrow. So we have to put something to drive closure. Scarcity bias. If everybody can have it, I'm not going to queue up. Just as an aside, if people have heard of Kylie's lip kit, if you just want to put it in the chat message, anybody's heard of Kylie's lip kits? No? You guys are not really with the modern times? Okay. So Kylie Jenner has these lip products, and she has the occasional pop-up shops. Now, the thing with the pop-up shops is that you cannot, the pop-up shops don't have a pricing. So you just have to go in and pick up the stuff. You cannot buy more than 2 things at the time. You also cannot sit while you're in queue. Now, the queue might be 10 hours, but you cannot sit. If you sit down, you're out of the queue. Look at all the stuff she's doing, right? Power of now, scarcity bias. The crowds are just standing there. They're not sitting. And it is Kylie Jenner. And she will give you the best possible lips ever. All 6 of these met, and that will tell you why she was one of the youngest billionaires. She was also really smart. She sold her company to Coty while she was still on top. So an example of where it all fits, right? So those of you who watched, I see some people saying they've watched the show but not heard of Kylie's lip kits. Clearly you do not have a teen daughter who will tell you exactly what Kylie's lip kit does. So moving to the next slide, Lux. So we have to find our superlative. So you have to be the only, the best, the biggest, the oldest, but relevant to the customer. Sebamed is not that well known compared to, say, Dove. They did a very fancy campaign in India about how they were the only brand with a pH of 5.5. Now, until they ran the ad, nobody cared about what the pH of a soap was. But because they did a full page ad, now everybody is worried about the pH level of their soap. And suddenly it's a mainstream kind of discussion point as to what is pH level, how does it matter to your skin, what is the pH level of skin? It becomes a big talking point, and their ad was, "I'm the only brand offering you a pH level of 5.5. It's something that they could stick with. It did help them lots. Ashok Sutha, some of you may have heard of him. He took Happiest Minds to IPO. And we were part of the initial launch of that particular organization. And the differentiation really was that I'm digital first, whereas all the mainstream firms, whereas Infosys, Wipro, etc., also do digital, but they also do old-fashioned stuff. So that was all they had to say. And that makes it different, because if I'm going to do a new age project, why do I need to go to these old age companies? I just come to the new guys, right? I run a newsletter, which Lux talked about, and people talk about a number of issues because I have positioned it as longest running marketing newsletter. I can't really claim to have the most subscribers, mainly because nobody else is sharing the subscription data. I do have testimonials to prove that I'm relevant, but longest is something I can own, and that's why I put it out there. Before we, started the session, we were talking about, does every brand need a superlative? And I actually think, yeah, I think we do. So Lux, is it time for our next poll?
Almost. I think we said we'll give a few examples before we jump in.
Okay.
Could be wrong. Yes, we've got the whole core versus surround thing you want to do.
Okay, great. So core and surround is a concept that I do want to leave with you, because core is what your product actually does, right? So let's say that you have a phone. What it actually does is make phone calls, or get you to surf on the internet or WhatsApp. Now, by and large, most phones do pretty much the same thing. A very functional Xiaomi, Honor, any of those phones does pretty much the same thing as your super fancy Apple does. But people don't tend to talk about the features of the phone as much as they talk about the surround attributes, Is it designed in California? Is it beautiful? Is it the thinnest? None of which actually matters to the core functionality of the product, but it matters to us because we are humans. We go into the storytelling. There is pretty much only one Indonesian rock band that I've heard of. It happens to be an all-girl rock band, and it completely makes waves because they also perform in hijab. Now, if you were to listen to their music, it's good, right? It's no doubt, it's good. But if I didn't know any of the story, would I be queuing up and saying, "Oh, wow, a hijabi girl rock band"? Probably not. Music is good, but not that great. There are those who, do really well. But it's a story that from Indonesia, you have these girls who basically had to drop out of school and pursue their passion. That's a story. And that starts to make you feel a little different about the core functionality of the music and how it feels to you. So I have some examples, if we could just move to that. Yeah. So water is the easiest example to give you, where the functionality is, it slakes your thirst, right? Every other attribute of water is just a surround benefit. And yet we choose to buy a particular bottle and pay a great deal more based on, did it come from France or, some Norwegian spring? Was it collected at midnight on a full moon day? Did it come in a beautiful glass bottle, or did it come in this plastic bottle? It matters, but the functionality remains exactly the same, and yet the brand premium is coming from something which is not in the product. a Nagpur orange, and there's a geotag now, tastes exactly the same as any other orange, but you think is different because it came from Nagpur. Wine, another storytelling opportunity. And it works for B2B in boring IT. Anybody tell me, can anyone put in the chat window, what is this pyramid? Where is it? Infosys, yes, perfect. It is Infosys. And why did Infosys need a pyramid? No idea, but we had one building called the washing machine, the other one called the Louvre pyramid. And it all added to the mystique of Infosys having this fabulous campus. Heads of state would come and inaugurate these buildings because it was different at the time. So it makes you stand out and it conveys quality and so on. Then we have the Happy Birthday Kylie, which again, the lipstick is a lipstick, but then it's all associated with Kylie. And she gives you free stuff, she gives you all of that. So again, the surround is what is mattering most to you. The SAP users group, so SAP does whatever it does, but then the user group has a momentum all its own, it's a profit center all its own. And that is why you probably do want to work with SAP, because you know that there's a huge community that is positive about it. So when you're looking for low-cost levers, the mousetrap is one element, as in you should have a good product, but also look around at the cheese. What could you have that makes it different, right? What's special about your narrative that could stand out and make it attractive for people to associate with you? It's like what's your piano really? Why do people want to hang around with you? So the surround attributes matter as much as the core functionality. So Lux, Elon Musk launches anything, even his things that fail on demo, it's still awesome. And really, it's not about the functional benefit, it's about Elon Musk. I mean, it benefits him more than anyone else, but it certainly isn't currently numbers by any means, but it's the myth, the surround of Elon Musk that got him his pay hike. The phone made in India. Now, again, does it matter where the product is made? Does it matter if it's designed in California, made in India? Maybe, maybe not in functionality. But when I buy a product, it matters a lot to me where it's from. I have this little mug in my hand. It's just a basic ceramic mug, but it has a picture of Singapore shop houses, and therefore there is a story to it, and I paid a premium for it, right? So you have to think through the story and the narrative of your brand, not just in terms of what it does, but in terms of what could tell your story better. And we talk about AI and what it does, but AI doesn't tell stories yet. It has to be taught how to tell the story. So this is where your marketing genius comes into play. I think it's time now for the quiz.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to change my screen share settings while we do that for a second. Yes, sir. Jessie, you still seeing the slides?
I'm sorry? Yeah, I'm still seeing slides.
Perfect. Yes, we got the quiz. And if you could just guide people around what we expect them to do.
Okay, so what I want you guys to do is to think through, like superlatives mean only, biggest, fastest, award, whatever you want to put, like oldest, if you think it's relevant, but which is relevant to your potential customers. What are the superlatives that you could potentially apply to your brand? You could mention your brand name as well, free publicity.
Any feedback on the answers we have coming in so far, Jess?
So I find things like say most meaningful, yeah, but you'd have to expand a bit because I don't know what you mean by most meaningful. Right? So fastest growing makes sense, and you could back it up with a bit of data. Easiest to adopt, you would still need to have some substantiation. Like you might have to say the only tool that can go from purchase to implementation in 30 seconds, or whatever you want to put it on. But you would, like when you say most experienced, again, we'd have to say, what do you mean? The brand with the most number of years, or the oldest, or like you have to have some qualifier that people understand. So for example, Pega, yeah, we know Pega, but enterprise grade platform is a description. Is it the only, or the fastest, or the best, or the biggest, or the sharpest, or the most modern, or best integration of AI? It's got to have that little punchline, which is the best or the only, right? I like this one, most accessible oxygen machine, 20 kilometers from wherever you are, right? This is probably your nearest oxygen machine. That would be a great line. Reliable and quality service. Again, you have to elaborate. What do you mean by reliable? What do you mean by quality? Most transformative, again, great line, but what do you mean by that? Like when you say most transformative, is it the app that 99% of users use at least once a week? Could be. Or, 85% of our users see transformation within 30 days. So you've got to elaborate a tiny bit. World's first purpose-built agriculture cloud. Perfect, lovely. Okay. So when we say LGBT owned and nationally certified business, I would still look at only, so the LGBT part is great for the surround story, but it's not a superlative because there could be others, right? You could put the stake down, or, only, and I hate saying arguably the only because that's arguable is not a word I want to use. But you could say, certified, like certified business, which does something, delivers something as well, right? So I love this one. 90% of our students have cleared the SAT test prep. When you say invest, I hope you mean money. That sounds fantastic. Can I see a thumbs up? Okay. Rejected by Shark Tank. Yeah, that sounds good. I would certainly get me a story. That would still be surround for me. It's not a superlative. Most versatile and effective. Yeah, again, words like versatile, you would have to define.
I think you got some amazing answers here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Lux, you could run a whole workshop just on the superlative.
I think so. I mean, very selfishly, we'll kick it off by asking you to give us a superlative. So a couple of us put in answers, hoping you'll pick it up and say, this is how I'd workshop it. This is how I redefine it for Stream Alive. And
Yep, I
we're
do
frugal.
that.
We
Yep.
want cheap, free marketing from an expert. So we tried our best. Yeah.
Yeah, good job.
Quick suggestion. I'm just going to stop this interaction. Oh, you got, okay. Got any more? All right. I'm going to stop after the red Tetris block. One of our co-founders, Tina, is a big Tetris fan from college. So this is a Tetris-inspired feature over here.
Ah, okay.
Remember those days? Yeah.
I do.
So anything you want to eyeball here? And while you look at that, I'm just going to scroll through these so you can look at the answers people put over here.
So for example, when we say something like fastest growing, or reliable in quality. So fastest growing is unique, but you have to connect it to what's the benefit for the customer. So highest engagement in your live sessions from Stream Alive. Yeah, but again, the only would probably work in this case. Most experienced, you'd have to kind of elaborate a tiny bit. when you say completely independent brokerage, great story, but it should be, is it the only completely independent brokerage? Otherwise it's not. Then you have to look at the, hijabi from Indonesia story and say, and I'm not kidding you. I mean, sometimes, people say I am like the best in my tiny suburb of New York, let's say. And that still works, right? So if I'm the fastest dry cleaner in tiny little suburb, it's still good for that little suburb. So you could make it very local instead of having to be countrywide or the biggest countrywide. So break it down and say, I am the, another story from the music world is there's a 10-year-old called Maya Neelakanthan who is making it big in America's Got Talent because she plays a very mean electric guitar with sitar tones, but she also does it in a huge, very strident red Indian ethnic costume. And is she the best guitar player in the world? Probably not, but she's probably the only one who's 10 years old, plays fusion, and shows up in that outfit in America's Got Talent, and that's what makes her unique. So you could look at category, subcategory. Right? And someone's asking, so don't you think that others can copycat it? Of course, everything out there can be copycatted. So you want to have something that you could hang on to, at least for a little while. The other part is if you say it first, it's hard for someone else to displace you. But I would try not to put stuff like the first or biggest, unless you can hang on to the title for at least 3 years, right? So you got to have something which someone else, like if you say you're the oldest, it's hard for anyone to overtake you, provided that is relevant. But if you say something like 90% of my students get in, or let's say I'm the only person so let's mix up two, right? The only LGBT owned business that delivers 90% pass rate or more for SAT. That is something pretty unique that you might be able to hang on to. If you just say I deliver 90%, yeah, someone else could take it. If I just say I'm LGBT owned, again, someone else could take it. So it's usually a combination of small uniqueness that adds up to one that you could hang on to.
Super. We are scheduling a follow-up workshop just on this singular thing in a couple of months. I'm just letting you know.
So I'll give you a little personal story. So when I started Pole Writer, and look, I've done FMCG marketing, I worked in advertising, and it was very tempting to say that I can do marketing. But then there are hundreds of people who are consultants who do FMCG marketing and have, long storied careers as well. But I found that nobody else was doing B2B. I agree. I mean, B2B is a bit dull, it's a bit boring, but that is where my career was. And it's okay to say that I'm a B2B marketing expert, and I could be the only B2B marketing expert from India. And that made sense for me at the time. Right? And then I can say that, hey, I'm the only B2B marketing expert who also has 2 books on frugal marketing. And then again, I'm now really unique. It's hard for someone to take over that position. Then I'm also the author of, India's longest running marketing newsletter, with whatever 30,000 subscribers. So it's all the combination that you would not be able to replicate, right? Okay, what was that? Quick chat GPT work. Okay, maestro of relationship recruitment. You still have to come up with, what's relevant to the customer and what does maestro mean, because that again has to be defined, right? So I'm going to move to the next slide, please.
Yeah, and one quick housekeeping thing, if you don't mind, Jess, for people. I'm very curious about a lot of these businesses people are talking about over here in the chat. I don't know about the remaining 45 of you, but if any of you would like a spotlight on your business, so post-session, we're going to be sending notes and things, which includes things we've distilled from the chat. So if at any point when Jess is talking or there's a slide going on, if you want to put a link to your business, if you'd like a spotlight on it, and for everyone to know, feel free to do so. Stream Alive automatically curates all links and categorizes them. And we will be sharing a link to all of that, just so everybody can know what the others in the room do, only if you want. And again, questions, type it in the chat. We will have a bit of time for questions after this. I'll go to the next slide. Over to you, Jess.
Okay, so some of this is DIY, and I was writing about this today's newsletter as well, is that what AI cannot do is give you a good framework. It messes it up. It gives you some framework. But once you have a framework, it can really help you to fill in the blanks. So Archana put in that fast chat GPT work, got her tagline. But that's the thing, it just gives you good words. It doesn't apply a framework. Whereas if you tell ChatGPT that I want you to use Jessie Paul's branding house and give me a superlative, it will start to refine. So part of why I use frameworks is also that these are DIY tools that you could use back home. So I've given you the 6 pillars of persuasion. So that's like a template that you could use to build your marketing plan. Branding House is another one that I've been using for years, and I actually personally borrowed it from Rama Bijapurkar. So it's basically a way to describe your brand. So the first one is, what are the indispensable elements of your brand? Everybody has that. Who am I? What do I actually do? So maybe I'm in recruitment. The table stakes are that I can get you people. But then why should you buy me and not, hundreds of people? Well, maybe because I have umpteen years of experience, I have 100 happy clients, I have a specialization in hedge funds. That's where you come to why buy me. Now, when you come to why not buy someone else is where you have the opportunity to fill in your superlative. And that's when you would say, you should choose me because I have global experience. I have delivered whatever 100 team members so far, and I have a specialization in the financial industry, and cobble it together and say the only recruitment team that will deliver hedge fund specialists in less than 8 weeks, or or else types. So you've got to take all your little bits and add it into a punchy thing, preferably not more than 10 words, but the framework will help you to keep refining. What is it? This is your brand blueprint. So if you can fill this up, you've got your brand blueprint in one shot. Next slide, please.
You got a question again for people?
Yep. So now you come to what is a differentiator for your product or service, right? Why should someone buy your product and not all the other people who claim? So we talked about, can someone copy my superlative? They shouldn't be able to. So this is where you bring in 3 elements so that someone can't. And I kid you not, one of my team members actually worked in a company that prided itself on being the top digital agency in Koramangala. Those of you who know Bangalore, know Koramangala is a tiny suburb of Bangalore. They were happy to just be that. It's okay. But it got them good SEO because top in some place helps. So now if you could just type it into the Zoom chat, what's a differentiator? And if you put the link for your website, that's great PR for you as well.
I've shamelessly put ours there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think this requires a little more thinking from everyone, and
Yeah. So the personalized tutoring, I would add something like personalized tutoring one-on-one by someone who is very differentiated. Oh, I like Mark Made Online. Sounds very fancy.
love your thoughts on Theo's thing in the blue there as well. Mark Made Online.
Very nice. I would say Stream Alive is the only tool that seamlessly allows user interactions during Zoom. Fully integrated.
So So does the same thing with other platforms as well? Would you then go make Zoom generic? Because we do the same thing with Twitch or YouTube or Teams. So that's one thing we struggle with. And then we change it
Then
to
you would
other.
have to say, so here's the problem there. So if I said I would do it on any platform, I lose 80% of my audience. I would probably have different messages, like you could say any platform internally, but if you expect to get most of your customers from Zoom, I would just put Zoom out there.
Very interesting.
Or
And
if you're looking at a
those are on-
specialized audience, I'd probably say StreamYard or something like that.
Yep. But most people are on Zoom, and next we have a lot of streamers as well. But I see your point.
Yeah, but I'm saying that if I was a professional user of webinars, I would probably be on StreamYard.
Correct.
So that's another of the cheese things, right? So if I want amateur users, I would say Zoom. If I wanted professional large scale webcasters, I would say StreamYard. So, and that would attract a different audience when I use that word.
Yep.
Right? So that makes your sales easier because, you know, the right people come to you, depending on what you wanted.
Done. Thank you.
Okay, moving
What about the
along.
Falls Church, Virginia equivalent of Koramangala there?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that's awesome.
Next slide,
So,
Jess.
you know, when we say that we're local, in today's world, and you look at your surround attributes, it also means that you understand the culture of the people you're coaching. And that's super important in the coaching space, right? I mean, I've had a session with someone who looked like she was kind of fresh out of high school. And it was like, I know you're really qualified, but, you know, even as a rank amateur, I seem to have done more than you. So you want someone whom you can vibe with and who, so that makes a difference. And that becomes your surround story.
Got it.
Like when I talk about the coffee shop around the corner in Falls Church, that's when my customers are like, oh yeah, I get you. I know what you're talking about, right? Okay, AI-powered enterprise platform for complex organizations. That sounds good. Okay, that sounds interesting. Mm-hmm. So it's just that whenever you're putting this in, try to look at your top 3 competitors and make sure they can't make the exact same statement. Tina's asking, do I do workshops? Yes, I do.
This is beautiful. Like I
Find me
said,
on a good day and they might be free.
Ooh,
So here's the thing, I do workshops and I can give you the tools, but typically you do not get the answer in one shot. Like you would do the workshop, you would try to work on it, you probably do 2 or 3 iterations before you get the right one. So when I work with clients, it tends to be an ongoing engagement. Now I know everybody doesn't want to do that, but you would still probably have to do at least 2 workshops because one would be to create it and the other is you go back, work on it, and then come back and say, this is it, right?
sense.
We work with you in the group and not just dole out strategy. That's a good one. Yeah, skin in the game. Okay, I think we should move on in the interest of time.
Yes, and just a heads up, maybe we may not have time for Q&A, in which case we will share the questions.
No, we will have time for Q&A. I can move faster. That's okay. I like Q&A. So let's do that. So the social proof, we all know. So I'm not going to do much, but the more people who appear to be using your product or service, people get super happy. So you need to find a way to disseminate that. And I was just recently doing a session with somebody and we found that, look, maybe your customers are too shy to talk about you, but maybe your employees are super happy and that could be a way to get social proof as well. Or influencers could be super happy, or, you know, you can amplify the 3 people that you have. typically brands get suckered into thinking I need 100 testimonials or 100 Google reviews. That is not the case. You just need 3 powerful people to say that. So if Donald Trump or Biden says your product is awesome, that could be enough social proof for you. You don't need another 100 people. Rajnikant says you're awesome, that's enough in India. So you also need to see who you're getting and then work on them for that. Now you can Google these examples, but they're all, the company ensured they went viral by using white or, the signature. Next one, please.
We can skip
Okay,
this
so
like in the interest of time, Jessie, or it's up to you.
no, this we can skip for now. The work the ecosystem is on the same principle, saying that, look, I may not be able to win all parts of this, but I might find one that is super useful for me. So maybe I get an endorsement from the government. That would be awesome. Or maybe a particular influencer like Kylie says my product is awesome, right? She endorsed sriracha sauce. Who knows, right? Industry associations. If you could move to the next slide, I have some examples. Yeah. The ecosystem can be very, very powerful for you. So celebrating the CA day. Now, CAs are not top of mind for anyone, a chartered accountant, but for Tally, they're top of mind and they celebrate them, and that's how they grow. Oracle has a very fancy partner network. Now, amazingly, I saw an ad by the Indian Association of Physiotherapists asking for endorsements and collaboration partners. So we have to look and see. Shein promoted influencers like crazy in the US to promote their product. So typically we tend to look at customer and us, and that's it, and then the salesman. But there's this huge ecosystem that you could work and which can, all small bits could add up to build you a powerful brand. Next slide, please. So this is my last slide, and it's just an example of the pillars of persuasion that you could have a superlative of the top 5. Then the trusted authority. So the dentist says that this is the best. You could build a community like Enfield or Harley. The clearance sale, which is now, and you see it everywhere. And scarcity, there's only so many left. I'm sorry, it's the last piece. All of them do that. And then free delivery. So you could offer free anything. Check all of these off before you sign off on any marketing plan. That's my advice to you. I can now, having rushed through, I now have time for questions.
A couple of quick things. Just wanted to recap the
Yeah.
things you mentioned.
Yeah, we should do this one.
We should do this, I think, yes. Again, people can choose multiple, but would love to know which of these people see as low-hanging fruit, something they're going to use sooner. There's a lot you've given us to chew on.
So you guys are not talking about the power of free as much, but this is Stream Alive and they're giving you this webinar for free. So hey, something's working with the free as well.
We also have a free account, and maybe we should hammer that even more. The fact that it's Thank you.
Right. So I know it's, superlative heuristic for me is the core element you need, but thereafter everything else starts to matter. And while the top 3 are the hardest to do, the 4, 5, and 6 are actually the easiest to do because it's in your control. And I give you this weird example as you're doing the poll where the rare B2C client I had was an apartment block where they were selling apartments. And in India, typically, you have 1,000 apartments, they're on sale all the time. But here, we did not sell them all the time. You could only buy them during the buying season. And trust me, people actually desperately wanted to be in there. They were giving us checks in advance.
Wow.
Yeah. So the moment you say you cannot buy it every day, you have to buy it only when my window is open, things change.
Makes sense. Cool. Jess, okay if I move from this one?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to do 3 things very quickly. I want to make sure that people who need to jump at the exact end of the hour, I want to make sure they know how to contact you. But very quickly, all the links people shared, they're all here, and we're going to share it with everybody. These are questions. But before that, anyone who stayed on and needs to leave, I want to make sure we pick those two winners, and everybody here qualifies as well. Balaji, congrats. We really need sound for this, the sound, the wheel turning and all of that. But we're going to have one copy going to Balaji. So Balaji, you'll see instructions in the chat on how you can get in touch with us to let us know how we can give you a copy of Jess's amazing book, the new one. Old one is also amazing. The new one is updated. It's newer. And we're going to knock Balaji off the wheel. This, by the way, is anybody who commented at least one time in the Zoom thing. We could have said 2 times, 3 times. But Balaji and Ramarao both commented at least once, as did many other people. I think 45 other people. Ramarao, you'll have instructions on the chat. Just these are questions.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Yes. I'm going to let you eyeball it. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to come back to this in a second because I want to ensure people know how to contact you. So would you mind if I go to the last slide and show that for a second, and then we come back here? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Over to you. What's the best way?
Okay, so you can mail me if you want a session. You might have to bribe me to do the session, but it's pretty easy. Typically, if you bought my book, I do offer a 1-hour session.
Oh, okay. That's another incentive for two people already qualify for a 1 hour.
Yes, but please don't come and say I haven't read the book, which is a bit disappointing.
So folks, I'm going to leave this for another 5 seconds for you to take a screenshot if you need to know how to get in touch with Jessie. And then we're going to jump into questions.
Just give me 1 second. I've got to let the dog in. Hang on.
Yeah. Those who need to jump out, thank you so much for joining us. We have many sessions like this. Next week, we have an amazing one on what the hell is systems thinking. Hope to see many of you there as well. I can promise that's going to be loads of fun. And just go to streamalive.com, click on events, and join us for future events as well. But we're going to, if you have questions or you put a question, stick around. Jessie's going to jump into that. Hopefully you've taken a screenshot now. We'll jump back to questions.
Okay, so we've already done would every tuition company, we've actually done all of these questions. Is the book available on Amazon? Yes, it is.
Cool. That was fast.
We did all the questions.
Yeah, folks, if you have any other questions, just put them in the chat. We integrate, we talked about that. Okay. Yeah, some of these are picked as questions. They may have been responses to your prompt, which were phrased as
Are you
questions.
sharing the deck afterwards? That's up to Lux to decide. I'm okay if it's shared.
If you're okay with it being shared, we'd be happy to share it. So I'm requesting my colleagues at Streamalive to please include it in the follow on.
If you only started a business and you are one man, sorry, what was that? I missed that question. And you haven't really your client base, how do you gain testimonials? Okay, so how you gain testimonials is that, like I said, there's a whole ecosystem that could give you testimonials. So you're, for example, if let's say you're a reseller, then the fact that your company that you're reselling, that could give you a testimonial. You could also get personal testimonials where they say that you are an awesome person and can be trusted and relied upon. So, that would matter. I have a question on social proof. What are the different personas that would matter? So it depends what you want to achieve, and it's really a choice between reach versus credibility. So some ideal situation is where the person has credibility and reach. So that's like, the Kardashians or the Rajnikant or, Donald Trump or whatever. But if you can't, then I need to have a lot more. So I might have people with credibility and not reach. In that case, I would take the credibility and then I would have to do the reach for them. As in, I would have to share it or put money behind advertising the fact that this person has endorsed me. So for example, the Dental Association has endorsed Sensodyne, but if Sensodyne doesn't put it on the box, nobody would know. So that's the other way to look at it.
There's a question.
So,
sorry, go on.
Yeah, sorry. So you'd have to choose it that way. There's a question on what's the difference between superlative and a differentiator. So my differentiator is, why should you buy me and not someone else? I would have to take that and craft it into a superlative.
We covered all the questions and almost exactly on the dot. This was fantastic. Let's see. Gosh, I'm actually going to, for those who I should have done this earlier, But I'm going to share my screen here again. And folks, as you leave, if you don't mind just leaving an emoji behind for what you thought of today's session. This was not part of our script. It was not part of the presentation, but we're going to convert this into an NFT and send it to Jessie, and she's going to become a multi-billionaire.
Aw.
We're still in the 2020s. Yeah. So just a little memento for Jessie for such a beautiful session. And hopefully this wall of love also helps convince her to come back to do a detailed workshop with Stream Alive on those sections where we could
Sure, can. No worries.
This was beautiful. Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Each of those pillars could have a whole different session. So,
Okay, we'll take 5 sessions. 6 sessions, sorry.
as they say in Singapore, can la.
Thank you, La. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining
Thanks,
us. It was beautiful.
everyone.
Thank you so much.